what's funny about it is that she doesn't fucking, I mean, like she dives into it. It's like, and I'm sure that if you are reading someone's biography, I'm someone that she probably I'm not sure how that all came to fruition.
I was going to say, do you think they know each other?
But I mean, maybe because they were kind of up and comers at the same time.
They had to be in the same circles, right?
Right, for sure. You know, she wasn't quite the bubblegum pop princess, but I mean, she was doing things like, I don't know if she would have like circled around the Melissa Joan Hart circle when she was doing Drive Me Crazy or any of that stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, you figure young Hollywood at that time, there's a Joshua Jackson connection that happens somewhere along
6
those
degrees
lines.
of Joshua Jackson.
Right. They stumbled in, into parties together. Although, you know, she did
probably stumbled out.
Right. She did skew a little younger than I think Michelle is. Because she was in the Lindsay Lohan. I mean, she was hanging out with Lohan and Paris Hilton during those terrible days to be a young starlet from a paparazzi standpoint, for sure.
Yeah, no, true. I don't think they did themselves any favors, though. I mean, especially like Paris Hilton. I'm not trying to blame the victim.
No. I understand, yeah. But like, had this? I mean, like, but think about it this way: had the spotlight been turned on you. At that same time.
No, because like what year would this have been? Like,
I mean, just consider the age you were when they were there. I mean, like what you were doing when you were their age.
Oh, I was just blackout drunk all the time.
Right. I mean, it would just been like, right. And like,
I'm so glad that we didn't have, I tell people this all the time, but I'm so glad that there were no like smartphones or like digital cameras around when I was like in the midst of my sort of like drinking and drug use, because good Lord, I mean, no one wants to see those pictures. Just no one wants to see them.
Yeah, and you don't
I can't tell you how many nights I was like naked running down the street.
And you don't want somebody to like, I'll just leave that there. You don't want anybody to like be taking a picture of you or taking a video of you while you're peeing in a mop bucket, a la Justin Bieber, or things like that, where you're just like drunk or high or
or like in the bushes outside of a wedding reception.
Right. Well, it's funny too, because like it used to be, you know, you used to, and this obviously sounds like a fucking, I'm going to yell at this guy here in a second, but like, you know, you had to get your pictures developed, and developing places wouldn't develop, you know, X-ray. I mean, they wouldn't, you know, and that's all, I don't know if that's actually, I'm sure you could have slipped a guy.
So I worked in the retail, I worked in the photography industry in several different like ways. In one way, early on was in retail and we had a high-end lab in the shop, and so I would go back and sort of like talk to the lab techs. As long as it wasn't abusive, you'd pretty much develop it. So people would bring in burlesque shots or, you know, nude pictures, but there was never anything that was dangerous or, you know, no rape fantasies, no child stuff like that. That's where you won't develop. But other than that, you're just like...
You'd imagine most of those were being developed in a home studios at that point. You didn't want to have the local police force called on you.
Well, so we had a strip club owner come in and drop his film off like all the time.
Nice.
Yeah. And you can imagine. Well, a lot of times he was a collector.
You know what's rough about that is you don't ever know if the picture came out until you get the film back. I mean, that was the rough spot.
Don't you remember this? Yeah, this was great. But this strip club owner, he collected currency. And I don't just mean like dollar bills that smelled like baby oil and sex, but I mean...
That's the name of our first album, by the way.
It smells like baby oil and sex. It's a mixtape. It's not an album proper.
It's just excerpts of the podcast played over smooth jazz.
John Tesh and Kenny G. It's like, anyway. But he would also, so a lot of the pictures were actually like pictures of the things that he collected, not just the women. Man, this just like sets itself up. But he would always bring in calendars for us every year. And the calendars were, of course, like full nude calendars. Right. But he'd just come in and be like, hey, bro, got a new stack of calendars for you. Thanks, Brad.
Is that a thing anymore? Do people still do
calendars?
Naked calendars, like in a
I don't know.
Like to like advertise Snap-on tools or your or some fishing gear or whatever?
said like you could have just said strap-on tools for that matter.
I mean, well, we're not getting sponsored by these groups.
This is true. Yeah.
I remember those like always in the back offices of like, you know, gas stations and or just in general in your uncle's home, like in
buxom brunettes and blondes with tool belts on and nothing else. Right. Tool belts and a smile.
Right. It was the same uncle that had the pin that you turned upside down and the girl stripped on it. So.
Yeah. And the tattoo on his forearm when he flexed like she would dance. Wow.
Things that go by the wayside. I guess I can't imagine a business today utilizing nudity to advertise sales.
Well, I mean, like Hooters is still around though.
Right, but
and there's a place called Twin Peaks, which is an allusion to boobs. I've never been there. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't been there. That's
one of my.
I thought it was a David Lynch inspired restaurant, but but apparently it was not.
You come in and the host is a backwards talking little person, like,
and you have to order the same way.
I mean, Hooters is like, it's like Maxim magazine though, right? It's like a watered down Disney-fied version of sex.
Yeah.
It's not, and look, not to say that like a catalog with boobs or a calendar with boobs in it is exactly like Hustler or anything like that, or like, but I mean, I don't know. It seemed like it was a little bit more dangerous than like, I don't even like, I know for a while, like Playboy went straight up like where they were only doing, they kind of went the Maxim route after Maxim and all those other magazines went away. But like for a while, they were not doing nudity.
They were really doing articles. Right. I mean, like, but like they used to.
Right.
I mean,
right. And then
I have a collection of vintage Playboy just for the articles.
Right, just for the racism. Right, it's just I collect racist vintage Playboy articles, mostly by John Wayne, but Brock is the connoisseur. He's got the foremost collection of racist Playboy articles and all throughout the Southwest.
I usually will break them out on first dates.
Did you want to hear about what Nixon said about the Jews? Like,
you got to read this.
Right, it's crazy.
Wait, no, not there. Don't look at the boobs. Go to the.
Keep flipping. Yes. I know the grooming standards were different back then. Just keep flipping.
It's coming back. Everything.
Right. 2024, the year of the pube. We're bringing it back. It's been 50 years. We're going to come right back. This is a movie podcast, right? I don't even know what the fuck is happening.
Well, somehow this will be, I don't know, edited and chopped up and but saved for posterity.
All of that being said, we need to read the Britney Spears memoirs so we can comment it on here.
Yeah. So this is something you have to look forward to, is us commenting on and talking about the new Britney Spears memoir. And I think we're gonna.
I think it's called "The Woman in Me." I think is that something along those lines.
One more time, yeah. But I think we're going to veer towards the audiobook because it's being read by Michelle Williams, or Jen from Dawson's Creek. Is she doing it in that character? I asked you this earlier.
Yeah, I didn't respond.
I know.
Yes, she is doing it.
That's how I know my jokes don't land.
Look, I've got work to do today. I know I bother you with bullshit all the time.
I was gonna say,
like what happened to Amanda Pete? Like at 11 o'clock last night, I texted you what happened to Amanda Pete. Or
No. Last night at 11 o'clock, you texted me the Britney Spears, the Michelle Williams. The Amanda Pete thing was during when I was teaching.
Oh, that's true.
Sometimes I just look at students and go, "Oh, look, you're all adults. This is college. I just need to respond to this text real fast."
This is pressing stuff. We need to get to the bottom of this.
You're right. I'm like, hang on, guys. Hang on.
Wait. Right. I just been given a question I hadn't thought about in a while. And
I know we're talking about Dante's Inferno and sort of the dangers of staying neutral in serious situations, but speaking of serious situations, Michelle Williams is reading Britney Spears. And side question, what happened to Amanda Pete?
Really, what happened to Amanda Pete?
Brockmire. Have you watched Brockmire with Hank Azaria?
No, I haven't.
The aforementioned
Amanda
The
Pete.
first season is pretty it's a pretty nasty show in like all the best ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, she there's a scene where she and Hank Azaria end up dating. Well, they just kind of like have sex. And she gets pregnant and they go to get an abortion pill, but she has an aversion to taking pills. And so she crushes it up and she's going to snort it. But of course, they're doing lines of other stuff and he does the
Plan B.
abortion pill. And so they go back to the doctor and he's like, take it right now. Just take it right now. What do you mean you snorted it? What do you... Anyway, should we start this fucking show?
Let's. We got movies to talk about.
Jason, before we actually dive into the movies, I have a couple corrections or mea culpas from last episode.
Did we say something stupid?
I did. I said something wrong.
Oh,
and because I'm not really going to say I'm sorry because look, I love you means never having to say I'm sorry.
Right.
But on the last episode, I mistakenly made reference to Sidney Lumet via Sidney Pollack.
Okay.
I mentioned Eyes Wide Shut, which stars Sidney Pollack.
I just went right over it.
But you were talking about Sidney Lumet directing a remake of Gloria.
You know, I get that. I do that occasionally as well. And that's probably why I didn't even think anything of it because I was like, okay, yeah, maybe that is the same guy.
And I also...
Pollack directs. So that's the other thing too.
Pollack's a director and this really kind of delicious actor. Whenever he shows up, you're like, oh, this is going to be good. He's going to do something. I also referenced Paul Mescal being in Passages, but that was wrong. Paul Mescal is in a film called All of Us Strangers, directed by Andrew Hay, which has very similar themes to Passages. Franz Rogowski, however, is in Passages, a film we're going to talk about today, along with You Won't Be Alone, the latest Fort Worth Film Club screening, and Of an Age, which is another film by the director of You Won't Be Alone, Goran Stolevski. So today's episode is just a wrestling with all of the weirdness of human nature.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would say just to the listener and to you, don't feel like you have to correct I know that we come across as like, intellectual elites when it comes to film. And I get that. And I get that you want to be correct.
I do that with everything.
Right. No, but specifically on this podcast, it's about film. And then everything else we talk about on this podcast. But I don't think we need to go because one, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be caught, to be quite honest. And we would spend half an episode like correcting ourselves.
This is true. But I caught it and I'm willing to admit when I have misstepped.
Okay.
With my expertise.
And let me say this on behalf of everyone out there that your apology is accepted. And
it wasn't an apology. I told you it wasn't an apology. It was a correction.
Right. Regardless of what it was.
I love you means never having to say you're sorry. Anyway, Jason, just walk down the staircase. Catalogs? Just walk down the staircase. It's not that hard.
Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Passages.
Wait, do you want to start with Passages?
Sure. Let's start with Passages.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know what I was doing last night?
No, but whatever it was, you sound very excited.
It's my party and my husband doesn't want to dance with me.
I'll dance with you.
Maybe we have to take more risk.
So now you're falling in love with someone else, you're taking that risk.
Think what's happening between us.
You cannot change someone like him. What they think, what they want to do.
I think I'm falling in love with you.
Say that to love the image.
I say it when I feel it.
You say it when it works for you.
I felt something that I hadn't felt in a very long time.
This is what always happens, we just forget.
I think this will be an interesting conversation because if you didn't catch that sort of disdain in Jason's voice, he wasn't a huge fan of Passages. Not that I need to speak for him, but here is a very brief logline. a gay couple's marriage is thrown into crisis was when one of them impulsively begins a passionate affair with a young woman.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong with that. I mean, I know you read that, but there's a lot wrong. I don't mean, what I'm saying is I don't believe that you're wrong. I believe that what you read is wrong.
Oh.
Like, he's not starting to be impetuous. Like, this is an asshole throughout the entire, like, his entire life has been built upon being an asshole.
Right. No, I said impulsively.
Right. Even then,
Right.
that's all he does. Is Everything is impulsive. So,
Yeah, well, and everything is self-serving. Right.
Yes.
And I think we're alerted to this immediately, right? Because I mean, one, by the way, he just talks to the extras in this film he's shooting. So Franz Rogowski plays Tomas. He's this, I guess, kind of an auteur. He's some kind of director. He's German and working in France. And he just kind of like berates these people in the film because one guy won't walk down the stairs the way he wants. And then the extras, he's like, what are you doing? Just hold your drink. Hold your drink this way. Why is this empty? Which I thought was a good kind of question. But, you know, when he goes back home to talk to his husband, Martin, he confesses this kind of, sleeping with a woman. And Martin says, this always happens after you finish a film, kind of implying that he loses his mind a little bit whenever he doesn't have this thing to keep him busy.
Yeah, I would gather that the film doesn't help him any. That this is who this guy is.
Right, but we're not supposed to like him.
I understand that. I understand that we're not supposed to like him, but you have to. Okay, so let me lay out a little bit more of the plot. So basically, he's it's in an after party. One of the extras, PAs, interns on the film, turns down one of the actors and goes and dances with the director. Mm. Can you remember with Martin and Thomas? It's Tomas, right?
It's Martin and Tomas. Okay.
Yeah. And then Agatha or whatever.
Agathe.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look. These are Agathe is a French name. I don't know if it's meant to be Agatha in English. I mean, we're kind of heathens when it comes to that. But yeah. So look, Adele Exarchopolous.
Yes. Yeah. She's wonderful in this.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. Very magnetic and she's great. And she has this like air about her. It's kind of like exuding like an innocence, but also like a worldliness in the same vein. It's really like off-putting and like, but in the best way.
She looks sleepy and sexy.
Yes, that's perfect. That's how. Never mind.
Don't. Just you said it was perfect. That's all you needed to say. So she dances with him. They sleep together. He confesses to his husband. They split up. He moves in with her. As soon as that happens, he rushes back to his husband. His husband's involved with another much more compelling man. He's an author. And he basically just ping pongs back in between in and out of these people's lives. As soon as he, gets some sort of attention, he, basically becomes fickle again and then moves on. Mm-hmm. He ends up knocking up Agathe. And I shouldn't say it like that. He ends up impregnating Agathe. I don't know why I said it like so. He ends up knocking a bitch up. I don't even know why. It was just like whatever, man. He ends up making his female person pregnant, and that was so much better,
right? And she invites him to a dinner with her parents, and he completely botches that, like runs roughshod over them. And then it really is just a matter of him bouncing back and forth between the two of them until the two of them essentially say they have enough. He tries to like weirdly combine the two relationships, saying that, Martin had always wanted a child and somehow he was going to make all very kind of, not really well thought out plan of how this was all going to come together and take the child from Agathe or like bring them all together, but so Martin could have a child. And of course, by this point, no one's having it. Agathe has an abortion, and they both basically reject him at the end of the film, and he's riding his bike through France or Paris, and which is obviously in the same place. It's just much more narrowed down. And that's the end of your 90 minutes, and that's it. Yes, we're not supposed to like Tomas.
No.
My problem with this film is there's nothing about Tomas that would make me think that Agathe or Martin would ever be drawn or would suffer this level of foolishness from this man. And so now we're just left with a guy who dresses the way that he dresses and is just an asshole. Like to me, that was my problem with the movie. And it is that there was really, to me, there was nothing compelling about Tomas. And so I would have liked to have heard Agathe or Martin's story to understand why they were allowing this person, because you don't really get that. He's so insecure, and we called him an auteur, but like the first test screening of his film goes poorly, and he's distraught, and then he is horrifically shitty when the second test screening goes well. But one would think that a person who was truly an auteur would have a lot more confidence in their own abilities. And understand the process. Everyone else, he's a child, and these other two seemingly well put together individuals. Again, it's 90 minutes. It's not a very long storyline, but they do tend to suffer. I understand why Agathe gets together with him in the first place, but as soon as, like, why are you letting him move in, and like, why are you continually being with him when you know he's bouncing back to his husband, and knowing that he left his husband for? I mean, it's just, I don't know. He was so distasteful that I just kind of was like, I'm ready for this fucking thing to be over.
So it sounds like to me you've had much healthier relationships than I have, because I saw a lot of compelling things in Tomas, and let me clarify that it is clear from the beginning that he is toxic, that he only cares about himself. But then there is also this sort of flash or magnetism about him where you're like, okay, I'll maybe see where this goes. And then there's even more when he comes, after he hurt you the first time, he comes back and apologizes. And you're like, okay, we'll see how this goes again. Knowing in the back of your head, like, this is going to end badly, but it's kind of fun. and so, I mean, like,
Well, see, that's the thing too. I don't think that for me, I never saw Martin and Agathe actually having any fun in this scenario. And like the author, I forget the character's name, the African-American author who's in love with Martin, or dates Martin at least. And like when Martin breaks up with him, he's like, this is Ahmad. He's like, this is a tragedy. You're both going to be ruined by this.
Yes.
If you go back to him. And he's like, I didn't never see why, like, there's got to be some sort of give to that, to that relationship. And if it's just, and that's the other thing about this movie, is that it kind of sets itself up to be this kind of sexy film. And it's really not. It's really like, there's not, I mean, like, yeah, there's elongated sex scenes but I didn't need to see Tomas's feet that much, to be honest.
Sure.
So, like, that
was sure. No, well, but do you think, I mean, don't you think it's sexy in a different way other than just the sex? I mean, I think there is an attractiveness to Rogowski it's a very kind of like you said, sort of I want to make sure I say this right. I understand. It is an immature attractiveness where he is clearly kind of in a state of arrested development. But the way he sort of moves, the way that he the way he dresses, the way he has temper tantrums. I think there's a kind of sexiness imbued there. And I think that Tomas is this kind of, I don't want to say that he is like all artists, but he's a kind of artist who has no idea what to do when he's not making this thing. And the only thing he wants to do is make this thing. And that's the only sort of thing that he lives in service for, not other people. Right. And so this kind of impetuousness, this kind of like, but that's also attractive to some people. I mean, look at Picasso.
Right.
I mean,
right. No, I'm with you.
And like, we still love his work, and women still flock to him. And you're not going to tell me that like these other like models didn't tell the other models like, this guy's a dick.
Yeah. And I get that. That was the other thing too, is that he didn't seem like he had like the level of fame, nor like this was not. It would be one thing if we saw everyone being drawn to him, but he's clearly a prick to almost everyone he meets. And to be fair, the one scene that really was where I liked him the most was the dinner scene with the parents.
Yeah, but that's where we get some empathy for him, right?
Right, because he comes in and he's like, look, I can tell you that I'm going to stay with a guy all you want. I can lie to you. I can tell you all these things. You won't know what's going to happen until it happens. So why are we having, so that idea of like, I'm not going to have these ridiculous conversations to tell you just something you want to hear, because what the fuck does it mean? It means nothing. So let's skip past all of that and let's just have dinner.
And the mom just kind of berates him too and sort of asks him these questions where you're like, you already know. I mean, and Agathe even says, you already know this. Why are you asking again? And she's like, well, I want to hear from him. And that's like such a bullshit like thing. Like, you know these things. You don't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
so I wanted to go, I mean, going back to like the director and sort of this guy at a certain level, something that I think we see in a lot of films that aren't Hollywood films are artists, successful artists, living in a different way than we see them here, where much more workmanlike, less so kind of rich celebrity. I mean, look at, oh no, I can't remember her name. This is great content, but we see, I think, you know, French directors living in places like he lives in, right? I mean, we see this in different films, and we see this depicted, just not here. We see Martin, who looks like he's a printer, another kind of artist, right? He looks like he's a printmaker on some level of commercial and industrial, both. And so what I'm getting at is I like how this film depicts art as
kind of workmanlike,
but still like important in how and what we're creating, just not so precious and so sort of these people are rich celebrities and like stars, right? Because even Ahmad, who's a novelist and editor, he's kind of like, I think I'm going to stop writing. I don't know that I want to do this anymore. But it's just
people that think of me as a writer,
right? I mean, it's this kind of less showy version of the artist and of the star.
And I guess I just never got that he was ever had the charisma or the the self-confidence in himself to, I mean, obviously that's repeating itself, but he never had the self-confidence to kind of like draw in these people. Like even when he's dancing with the God at the beginning, he's kind of still inside of himself and unsure. And then the way that he behaves about his film, the only time you see him assertive is at the beginning when he's being an asshole on set and when he's being an asshole at the dinner. There are certain flourishes where if he is filled with emotion, then he goes off to Martin and is like, I'm going to burst in and I'm going to take over and I'm going to do all these things. And I can see, to Martin, who may have not had anybody, and maybe it's hard for me to believe. And it's weird, like, because you really don't talk about the marriage. Like, you don't really talk. So it's weird to me that the synopsis includes the tidbit that they're married, because I don't think it really adds anything to the story per se.
No, other than,
I mean, you get that they're in a committed relationship, right? You get there because they have a house, they have a vacation home together, and obviously they're living together, but you also feel like that's so temporal, because he immediately moves out and is like, they're splitting up books and and then he immediately moves in with a God. So you would think that, and also that would be another one of those things where like I think I wish this was a little bit more fleshed out. I would have liked to have seen a lot of the hesitance from a God to just let him move in.
Yeah.
That seemed like, because again, almost immediately he settles into using her as a domestic, really. I mean, and so, and again, you would expect, I guess maybe I went into this with expectations of this being a lot more passionate and like fiery than it ended up actually being. And I know that there were moments, right? But really with the God, you only get it at one particular point in time. It's really like, I think, I say that I didn't really enjoy watching this film. I do think it was well put together. I think that it was really well shot. And I think the three leads are really good. Yeah. I think the scene when he's in the bathtub and he's almost baby-esque, where he's just like, and she's kind of like laughing at him, and he's like, I'm very happy to be here. And she's like, are you happy too? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? That's not how she reacted, but that's essentially what she was saying. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
You're naked I got a naked grown man in my bath taking a bath. Yes, I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, to this idea of how it's made and how it's shot, I really, I think, responded to that, and I understand even if I don't fully agree, like why you don't like it. But I mean, that's what makes this podcast so critically ignored.
Right.
but I think that it does. I really like how it moves. I like how Sachs kind of controls the pace. I like that it feels brisk, but kind of unhurried, right? But also kind of like chaotic, but still controlled, right? And I think that it's edited really well as well. I think it's cut together really nice. So, I mean, yeah, in the performances, I think are just fantastic. I mean, Exarchopolous, I mean, she, like I said, is sleepy and sexy and has this kind of, confidence and sort of self-awareness too. And so does Wishaw. I don't think that these two are victims of him. I think that they still have enough agency and up to a certain extent where they're just like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Right. Really, I'm done. Get away. Because it would be easy. The easy thing would have been one of them to go back to him or like let him back in.
Right.
And then the cycle continues on. But neither of them do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, this takes a good turn. And again, not to say that abortion's a good turn, but it is her taking back control of her. I'm realizing that this is going nowhere and that this is a bad idea and that she can't, to see this through would only lead to more of this. And now you would bring a child.
More abortions.
Yes, more abortions. Seeing this through only leads to more abortions. Yeah. I mean, like, I think your mileage may vary. I do believe, for me, I wanted to see a glimpse of charisma in Tomas that I didn't see. I wanted to find something that was compelling about him, even though he was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
To make me believe that Martin and Agathe would upend their lives for this person so openly and freely, without ever speaking up for themselves as he's running kind of roughshod over them until they absolutely have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they try, but then again, they get bulldozed and they kind of go back until finally they sever it. I did like the last scene too, where, after being rejected first by Martin and then next by Adele, Tomas is just on his bicycle, sort of riding aimlessly through Paris as Paris is sort of coming to life, right, for the evening, as these school children are playing in the street and he rides by. And he's just this sort of lonely. This might be the only moment where he seems to sort of accept that he fucked up. Right. And of course, then that's it.
That's the end of the movie.
Right. But I do like that. I think it's a pretty beautiful, ending. Yeah, I like this more than you did.
That's right. Yeah, that's fine.
I have a question. I don't know if we want to sort of transition into Of an Age or the other film, but
I think Of an Age plays better because it goes directly into
right. So no, exactly, and that's where this question comes from. Is like, do we have different expectations on quote unquote queer stories than we would heteronormative stories? And I'm sorry, queer love stories versus heteronormative love stories.
Expectations.
I just mean, like, are there things that we expect going in that we wouldn't expect?
I find myself like maybe unfairly judging the routine story, right? I mean, like, because we've seen it so many times in a heteronormative way. Like, so take this sex scene in Passages, which becomes overlong to me anyway. And I get that it's passion, but so I feel like that's almost a statement of saying, like, also heteronormative shots or sex shots are boring and overlong and ridiculous as well. Yeah. And I appreciate that they're on, but I was just like, okay, well, this is all right. We're going. And it wasn't because it was a homosexual sex scene. It was just because it was okay, we're good.
Right. I get it. Yeah. Well, I think often, I think this is often sex scenes are gratuitous.
Right.
Anyway, there's a performative sort of gaze aspect to it rather than an actual, I don't know, passion part to it. Right.
Right. No, but I feel like it's a nice twist on these stories to put them in a queer light.
Right.
But also it's like we were talking about with Real Women Have Curves and these stories where we're normalizing finally cultures that needed to be normalized, but also we're still telling pedantic and pedestrian stories. And so I don't think it's fair to ask them to tell exceptional stories every single time out of the gate. Yeah. But also we've seen pedantic and pedestrian stories being told, historically utilizing white and straight characters. And so to see that same sort of play out, I understand the representation is important, but also from a moving going perspective, it's not, once you start seeing them, the repetition and the formula becomes clear, and it gets to be kind of difficult. So to kind of really invest and not to start to pick apart the pieces of it all. So, I mean, I think with passages where it's so well acted, you can kind of get past that. I liked Of an Age. If we want to dive right in,
I just wanted to say about passages where, I mean, I saw that I kind of wanted to add on to that, where I see passages as this kind of, take on messy, complicated, but contemporary relationships, where this is a love triangle, yes, and it's different because it's two men and a woman, and there is this, towards the end, this veering towards a kind of polyamory, which, I mean, doesn't happen. And so, I mean, I think it does bring it into a little bit more of a modern kind of concept in that way too. Where, I mean, yes, I mean, the love triangle is an old story. I mean, I do think there is a different spin when you sort of have the fluidity of this kind of sexuality in a film.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But I mean, yes, I'm glad to hear you liked Of an Age, because I liked it as well.
I remember growing up, I was convinced I'd travel the world, just meet these mind-blowing people, connect.
Jesus, you're like 11.
I'm 18 in like 3 weeks.
Are you jaded yet? You jaded.
Shut up.
You're like my sister, is that it?
Ew. No, but we're more like really good friends.
Yeah, I thought he's tight.
Nights out with boys. I was not out with boys, I was with Cole. Cole is not boys.
I know she can be like a mess, but I don't really have any other friends.
You gotta play off the dramatic, don't you? Is this actually a dance costume? Just wanting some serious cleavage.
What's all this? Still my ex's stuff. Your ex is gonna kill me.
Oh, chill. He won't.
What's going on?
It's my going away dinner.
When are you flying?
Tomorrow. South America.
Come on. You probably just want to get to bed. She was gonna go for a drive. Can I come?
Can I walk you to your door?
Promise me I'll meet someone. He's a beautiful boy. What are the odds? We'll both be arriving right now. I'm a bitter old man these days. Shut up. You happy? Because for me, life froze. To this one feeling.
Do you want to dive into Of an Age?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to. Okay.
I mean, look, that's your job, all right. So let's not.
Look. Do you want me to go through all my jobs? In the summer of 1999, a 17-year-old Serbian-born Australian amateur ballroom dancer experiences an unexpected and intense 24-hour romance with a friend's older brother.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's it. Good show.
Yeah. All right. We liked it. So good. All right. It's out. No reason to say anymore. Thumbs up.
So I want to ask another question about queer love stories. Are they inherently more tension-filled than heteronormative love stories? So what I mean is there already more at stake in a story like this than there would be with.
Well, I think of an age, because of where they set the time frame, yes, right? I think as we get past, legalization of the marriage and as we get a more, putting a pen in the moment, in the time frame we exist today. I mean, I think
God, please, it's fucking terrible.
I think as we see more and more of these stories, I think the tension of, oh shit, I've got to worry about also the ramifications of also being queer start to fade. And that's not necessarily for me to say. So if I'm wrong in that, I will totally own it. Yeah. But the more and more that these stories get told, and that's the reason we want these stories to be told in this light, is that the more and more these stories get told, the more and more they become normalized. And then we can remove that level of tension, just like you would have had with interracial relationships or, or any sort of, sexual conduct in sort of in the 30s and 40s and movies like that where it's taboo, right? Yeah. So anything we hit the more and more we tell these quote unquote taboo stories, that tension is undercut. Now this Of an Age is set in 1999 and then 2010. I do think that, that probably would have been more prevalent. So you do feel, but this movie doesn't really, doesn't really posit that it's difficult for either one of these. I think it's one young person who hasn't quite come to grips with himself until he's introduced to a male who is completely out in the open, and he obviously finds out he's a compelling and interesting person before he finds out that he's gay. But this is a person who is probably struggling, and you feel like that obviously when he's on the phone, when he's trying to save Ebony and is it Aya or Taya or
something like that?
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, says, "Oh, there's a gay boy here," and he's like,
he's like, "I'm not gay."
And even if I were, that has nothing to do with anything. Like, it's a funny line. The first,
it was really good.
20 minutes of this movie are amazing. Well, it's probably not quite that long, but the whole segment of the franticness of. So this movie starts off with they're trying to get to a dance competition, and
it starts off with her on the beach waking up. I mean, this is what's so kind of disorienting too, is that it starts with Ebony waking up from basically a night out, right?
And you don't have any idea what happened. She doesn't have any idea.
She doesn't have any idea.
And she runs to a telephone, and so you cut back to see the dancing, and so they're supposed to be both going to a dance competition, and she's calling him frantically on the phone, and she's like, they've got 2 hours to get there, and she's an hour away, the opposite direction, because she did a hyphen of speed, which I found was a great line. She's like, I didn't even do a line. I didn't even have a line. It was a hyphen.
Like a hyphen
of speed. Ebony's and see, so if we want to go, and again, I don't want to continue to harp on passages.
No, but I think that's okay, because I think it's hard to talk about these two films without talking about the other one.
But if Ebony is Tomas, then I find that Ebony is compelling. I understand why you go back to a train wreck like Ebony.
Well, 100%.
But you want to stay away from, because Ebony will eventually, that's the thing about Tomas, is that the codependency is so unattractive that Ebony's reluctance and, not reluctance, but her need to, she doesn't have a need to be aligned with anyone. So, really, everyone lives in her world. Everyone lives in Tomas's world, but you don't really know why. Ebony, it makes sense to me why you live in Ebony's world. She's a fucking mess, but she's also probably a hell of a lot of fun to be around.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yes. I'm surprised we didn't see Ebony start a fight, an actual fist fight somewhere.
Right.
That her brother and Cole had to sort of take care of and jump in and, diffuse. Those are my friends. I had friends just like Ebony who were just friends, right? But yeah, they would start anyway.
That the phone call is look, this movie starts off, this is a good movie. This movie starts off ridiculously strong with that phone call, and now that back and forth, and Ebony basically calling him frantic, not knowing where she is, telling him to come pick her up. And she's at the same time telling him to stop yelling at her, but also calling him an idiot for not knowing where she is, or how to help,
or how to get there.
At a certain point, she turns on him. It's like, wait a minute, you haven't suggested anything good at all. What's your fucking problem? She's the one causing all this problem. She's the one who's going to keep him out of getting into college. because they can't finish this, and because you're thinking that he's going to go to art school or that this dance competition is important enough for their future, and they're in the finals, and that they're missing it is a big deal. And so he employs one of Ebony's brother's friends to get him on the phone so they can go and pick her up without notifying her mother. And then on the drive out there, he's in this like sequined dance, dance suit, like skin tight dance suit with his shirt open.
Yeah, it's a ballroom dance. Right. Yeah,
and they're just dry. So they start talking to one another over a drive, and very slyly comes out that he's actually gay. And
he has his ex's stuff in the back.
Right.
And I think Cole says something like, well, won't your ex miss this or whatever? And Adam, that's the brother's name, goes, no, he won't. So he uses that, and then you see, Cole stiffens up.
Right. Yeah. He kind of recoils, and then ultimately kind of like relaxes, which I felt was a really nice scene, right? That tension was kind of like, as soon as he leveled back in, and he really, he stiffens up, and then Ebony comes right back into the picture, and you feel like this is performative for Ebony as well, where he's like starts to call him bro, and like starts to like use
that was great, right? Sick ass bro,
right?
And the brother's like, bro.
Did they say sick ass in 1999?
Sick as,
right? Okay, whatever.
But no, I don't know. I'm like, well, but this is Australia.
It's true.
We're not Australian. What were we saying in 1999? I don't know. I don't remember.
Sure. Yeah. I need to go back and look at my Playboy articles to see what they were saying back then.
Well, in 99, they had no articles. It was then it was just pictures.
It was just all girls of the SEC. Not the Securities and Exchange Commission, but the actual Southeastern Conference.
I think the car ride is really just a great moment. One of the stronger moments, I think, in this film. How the two of them, I think, play off of one another, how so much gets done and said in a look, in a reaction, right? In a small gesture, right? When he's driving and it's hot, so he takes his shirt off. I mean, stuff like that, I think
that's portion of it too, is
after.
After he comes out after he comes out to Cole, and Cole recoils. It's kind of I recognize who you are, Cole. Yeah. So let's see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah. But exactly. And I think that's so well done and so sort of smart, because the brother sort of looks first, and then they both sort of gang up on Ebony because she's being a bitch. Right. Because that's who she is.
Right? She sucks.
Yes. And I mean that in like the most affectionate way possible. Right. And then that kind of breaks the ice again. And yeah.
What I found funny too is that when they go, I guess, to the mall to get food, is that she's actually in her dress, like in the dancing dress. There was really no.
Oh, because they brought. Right. That's right. Because he brought it. So it changes.
And he had like T-shirts and stuff in the car. It wasn't like she had to change into that dress, but now she's just in that dress because it looks amazing on her. So it's just like.
And they just like give up. They're just like, all right, let's go get some food.
Right. Which again, going back to passages, is another, like, you understand why they give up with Ebony. It's because it's still like you're still in the kind of that orbit.
Well, and you understand that like there is no point in fighting with her.
Right.
You're going to lose.
Right.
You have no chance.
Right.
Yeah. And you see Cole, he's disappointed, but I think he's just sort of at this point in his life, he doesn't know. I think, you said this, he doesn't know who he is. He has no idea. He has one friend, and it's her. And
right.
so
and
he's
his mom is his mom's working 3 jobs, and so she's not around. He's living with his uncles who are,
conservative Eastern European.
Right. And they're, they spend their time watching sports and basically making gay jokes and chastising
and being
Cole
waited on by when they don't know he's gay, but like, boys, he doesn't care about the football. He doesn't care about soccer. Right. What are you wearing? Oh, he's going to dance. Okay. Right. And this is ridiculous. Right. And so, yeah, they might not know he's gay, but they think he's a sissy anyway. Right. So, I mean, it makes even more sense that he is willing to be submissive to this one girl who's willing to hang out with him and sort of be a quote unquote friend. And even like her brother's like, why are you hanging out with my sister? She sucks. And he's like, I think he says like, I don't know. I don't have any other friends.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you're right. But
you have to no one else that the friendship was born out of the dancing, right? And it's a means to an end too.
And then she sees that she sees that she can control him and sort of get him to do. I mean, again, like he goes through all this work to go find her.
Right.
And does she ever say thanks?
No, of course not.
But it's like, so why? Right? Why?
In fact, she's pissed that it takes so long. Right? I mean,
where have you been? Like, I didn't know where you.
The first thing she asks is for air conditioning in the car, and like, you know, it's more demands upon demands upon demands.
And she's just like crumpled in the phone booth when they get there.
Right.
So good. She's got no shoes. I know what it's like to wake up not know where your shoes are.
So they end up going to a party. They end up getting invited to a party by one of Adam's gay friends. We assume that it's, or at least somebody who knew him in the past.
Yeah.
And none of them want to go, obviously.
Except for
Ebony wants to go because it's at this girl's house that she kind of doesn't like anyway.
Yeah. And it's a party.
Right. And it's a party she can, so they go to the party, so there's still now tension is building up between Adam and Cole.
Cole doesn't go with them.
Right.
Ebony calls him later and she's like, where are you? He's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so Cole shows up to the party and is essentially ignored by Ebony when he gets there. And the only saving portion of it is that Adam actually happens to be there as well. Yeah. Adam finally, most likely Adam brought her there and is just hanging out.
So wait, I have to ask a question because I want to see if I heard this right when I was watching the film, where he's walking around looking for Ebony, right? Have you seen Ebony? Have you seen Ebony? Have you seen Ebony? And then when Ebony finds him, she's like, quick, come on, we got to go. There's this cute boy looking for me. And he's like, oh, that was me. She's like, no. A cute boy was looking for me. He's like, no, I'm right. Okay.
Yeah. I think she ends up saying he's white, right? He's like,
yeah. And he's like, what does that have? But I just thought, man, she just dismisses him at like every turn.
Right. It weirdly comes out that the owner of this is an odd section for me. And I guess it just kind of shows the alienation. And maybe this is one of the kind of themes that doesn't really get, or maybe it was just lost on me, was his immigrant status in Australia and how difficult that was for him. Mm-hmm. Because, there's a kind of a racist aspect at the house where when he wakes up, like everyone basically abandons him at the house. He wakes up by himself and wanders out, and the girl whose house it is like, get the fuck out of here. Do you want my fiance to, come kick you? Because he would love to kick your ass. And it's basically pointedly saying, you're not welcome here. So that was kind of the one aspect of it. I was like, this film is trying to say something, and I'm not quite sure I'm picking up everything it's trying to say about the immigrant experience in Australia.
Yeah. And maybe that's its one failing. Right.
Maybe it was just assumed if you're from that region, you'd understand those. And
if you have a weird last name, Cole Dinich, right? And a lot of times that's his last name, and people will call him Dinnick, and he corrects them, Dinich, right? So maybe it's just an overt like, you're an immigrant, get out of here, right? We don't, which we see, I think, in way too many countries now, right? Just that attitude.
So Cole and Adam have a moment together after he after he leaves and they and that's the end of act 1.5, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Adam's going off to start a PhD program, and after they sort of spend the night together, he drops Cole back off at his house, and they have this like touching moment where
he's like, do you want me to walk you to the door?
Yeah. And he's like, no, my uncles wouldn't. And then he says, how long does a PhD take? And he goes, and I'm sorry, that was a stupid question. And so you understand like immediately, this is not
when he's confessing to you about how he didn't ever read, or he didn't really understand the trial.
Kafka.
He didn't understand the books that he was like, trying to make himself look big with. And that was clearly impressing Adam at the time anyway.
Yeah.
So it kind of all comes crashing down that in the realization that he's going to be left here again with basically no one.
Right. He has this connection with this person that is going to end as soon as he gets out of the car, and he doesn't know if it will ever be like rekindled.
Right. And Adam kind of apologizes, or he does apologize, and and you think maybe he's just apologizing for him having to go into his house full of like homophobic uncles, but it's all of it, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't meet sooner. I'm sorry that you're just now kind of coming to this realization. I'm sorry that I can't be here to help you through this. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, so many things.
And then we cut, right? And we cut to an Icelandic volcano. I found it very odd, the splicing of this film.
I did too,
because this is another hour and 40 minutes, and it's in a good hour and 10 where we've spent with these characters, and then we flash forward 10 years to essentially Ebony's wedding. And Tomas and Adam. Then Tomas shows up out of passages, and it's a really fucking weird like crossover.
But he just ruins everyone's lives. It's awful. Right. He just tries to sleep with everybody.
Cole and Adam end up at the airport together. They've both been delayed because of the volcano. And they end up taking a car in together to go.
But we immediately see. I'm sorry, I just jump in and like be like, listen, Jason. We immediately see a difference in Cole, and I like how he shows this, where Cole's waiting for his bag. It what's that called?
The baggage claim.
Baggage claim. Thank you.
Bag place.
He's waiting. This is a place known for bag pickup. So that's what he's doing. But we see him waiting for a bag, and somebody bumps into him in a rude way. And the Cole we met before would have shrunk back and almost apologized for being in the way. But this guy doesn't, right? The new Cole doesn't. He stands firm and stares this guy right in the eye. And it's just kind of like, what the fuck, man? Like, what? What do you want? And so I love that he stands up straighter, right? He's bigger. Right. He looks like someone you don't really want to mess with.
Right.
So I think that transformation, without having to say anything, right, just shows us that he's grown into someone else, right? He's understood who he is now and sort of who he wants to be. And so I think that's a good piece of character development there.
Yeah. Yeah. They take a cab. All of what gets revealed like during this segment is heartbreaking and wonderful, but like, you feel like Cole has made this trip a few times hoping to run into Adam.
Yeah.
Right.
When we find out he was just there not too long ago.
And that's how he got invited to the wedding. You figure that he probably wouldn't have come to the wedding because he hadn't talked to Ebony in almost 5 years. And obviously he's invited because he was there. They ran into him. And then the mom was like, oh my gosh, you've got to invite him to the wedding. But you feel like Cole has never been able to let go of this relationship. And he talks about how he's, met boys and he's clearly an out gay man at this point.
Yeah. When we find out that he hasn't seen his uncles,
right? He can't go home.
He can't go there, right? His mom and brother live somewhere. Yeah. Ostracized. She's ostracized as well, living with the brother who has a family, right? A wife and kids. And then he says, "Who does that? Who gets married?" And we see Adam's face, and I think we know at that point, like, oh, this guy does. He doesn't say anything, but we're waiting. I think we're just waiting for it. Right.
It's a cool like moment where he's like, finally he can kind of say fuck you to Ebony, like in kind of her kind of basic bitch life that she's leading at this moment. And also, it's that duality of like, oh shit, Adam is in a relationship too. What I love about that, and obviously, Cole is upset when he finds out that Adam is married, and kind of takes a moment to kind of regain himself. And they, it culminates in the big dance scene with him and Ebony, and everyone's like fawning all over them. And he's just like, fuck you.
Right. He gets this moment where he tells all these people who wouldn't give him the time of day, right, 10 years ago, who told him to leave their house, to leave the country. And now you want your turn on the dance floor? Fuck off. Right. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
I really love the I don't want to sleep with you moment.
Oh yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, so they go back to so they dance around, and Adam is flirting with cheating on his husband. Like, you don't ever meet the husband, but you see that there's still a connection there, and there's still an attraction there. And obviously they had a seminal moment together. But so there's a dance, and they go back to their to a hotel room, and both of them are like, I don't really want to sleep with you, and I don't want to say, I don't either. And it's like, well, what do you want to do? And they just kind of hold each other. I mean, that's really, how the movie ends. It's really, really good. That whole, like I said, it's a little jarring that only have that last kind of moment where Cole is, for such a short period of time, a more confident, composed, and just having the life you feel like he deserves to have, even though there's still a sadness in him that he still hasn't been able to find. We know what Adam had given him,
right?
Whatever that might have been.
And he says that, right? I've known people I've been with, but I've never had.
Right.
This. And he's kind of like, I always thought I was so lucky to have had like that. Yeah. I love too when they're walking back to Cole's hotel, they kind of stop outside and you don't know what's going to happen, which way they're going to go. And Adam just says, where's your key? And he takes it, and Adam just takes the key and goes forward. And you're just like, that's such a baller move. I mean, it is such a good move. Just like, okay. Yeah. And then again, I think, we're surprised when it just turns into a moment of compassion, a moment of holding each other. And really it's Adam holding Cole. And at this point, like, the physical space or the physical difference between them is reversed from what it was before. Right? We meet them before and we see Adam as, if not bigger, having a bigger presence, right? And now we see Cole, and Cole kind of towers over him in a way that I didn't really recognize before. But it's still Adam doing the holding, right? Adam is the big spoon. But again, it's this touching moment because Cole really just kind of breaks down at that point.
Well, and he'd been cold to him at the wedding after he finds out that he was married, and kind of like taking that on to kind of showboat a little bit and kind of show maybe a little bit about of like what you're missing and what you could have had, kind of thing.
It's a peacocking, it's a false kind of I think confidence, but that's, I mean, I don't know. I think most of us have done something similar.
I find the interaction between Ebony and Cole maybe a little self-serving in that sense, because I don't know if Ebony is like it, and maybe coming with age, it's different. But like, you never really get the indication that Ebony really wanted Cole to be at the wedding.
I just don't think I think she just doesn't care, like, either way.
Right. Yeah. And then like the moment where she stares at him and he stares at her across, and she kind of like gives him a knowing, like, loving look.
Oh, at the end there.
Yeah.
But it also looks like she is miserable in that moment too.
Right.
Which I really liked. I was like, this relationship's going to suck.
Yeah, because
marriage is.
There's a scene where after the dance, they're in the restroom, and I kept thinking that the husband was the gay guy who was at the restaurant, who was Adam's friend from before. I'm sure it's not, but they had a very similar look and build.
Yeah.
But there's a moment in the restroom where Cole and her husband are like next to one another, and the husband like completely does basically the same thing that Ebony has ever done. Just completely dismisses him, even though he's had this huge moment on this wedding dance floor where it's this kind of sensuous dance that they're doing, and everyone's gawking at them, and he completely like doesn't even acknowledge that he's there.
Also, I think that might be because a woman just ran out of the bathroom.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that. Okay.
So there is, I think, an insinuation that the groom
was
just had a quickie in the bathroom with some other woman, right? And then he comes out and sees Cole taking a leak. It's like, I'm just not going to look. So I don't know. Yeah.
So there's a lot packed into that look. Mm-hmm. If Ebony does realize that that Cole was more important to her than then. And this kind of moment of maybe Cole recognizing that she finally recognizes that. It's a sweet moment. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure it's fully earned, but it's a sweet moment either way.
And I'm with you. I do like it. It's kind of like the chasing Amy moment.
Yeah.
Right? You can't see what I just did with my hands, but Jason understood. If you've seen Chasing Amy, you know what I'm talking about.
Another thing that I found this movie did well, and I don't know if it was pointed, but Cole, when he meets Adam, is 19. There's not a significant gap in their ages, maybe 3 to 4 years. Yeah. So it seems like it's trying to to skirt a lot of the tropes that like something like Call Me by Your Name or like,
sure.
That typical, like these typical stories that have come up, where it's an older gay man giving a younger gay man, that first experience or kind of grooming in a sense. This movie kind of skirts that by making sure that we're very pointed in knowing when their ages are.
Yeah,
we don't have to guess, right?
It's not that far. Yeah. Grooming's the wrong word, don't you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, like, I don't mean it in the same sense of
in the negative connotation.
Yeah,
but
I
I like how I'm just going to question your language usage at all times.
All I know is that it's been a trope, right? So like
right.
And so
okay,
it's been a dangerous one. I think that even though I think again, it's hard. Why am I talking about it? Because I don't know. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
why do we talk about anything?
No, what I mean, like, I just know that it's been brought up in the past that this trope of older gay man and younger gay man is somewhat problematic, right? So maybe grooming is the wrong word.
Yeah, I mean, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, whatever, right?
Right, I get it. History, right? I understand.
History
I understand
is
how
a
it works.
Thing. I wonder. I was curious why there wasn't more about the dancing in this film. I don't know.
In a Silver Linings Playbook kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah, but it almost seems like it seems like a point, right? It does seem like a almost a red herring in a sense where, it's put there so Cole can have a big moment. It is a plot device to do that. And it also gives him a way to showcase himself at the beginning of the film. So we find him compelling and interesting because that whole sequence where he's dancing at the beginning, he's really good. He's beautiful. Like and you're also then coupled with this mess of a human being who's calling him on the phone and, and then desperately kind of interrupting and kind of just, I mean, not interrupting, but like just, worsening his life as
right. It just, and this is, I think, why it's surprising that there's not more about dance in this film, that he is compelling. He is so good. It seems important, but then he's working in public policy, like later on.
Right.
And it sort of comes back at the end. And I mean, I obviously, it's a plot point. It's a plot device. It does what it's supposed to do. But I wonder too, though, could dance become sort of like a cliche with this story? So gay men dance. I don't know. But I was expecting more, I think, about that.
I think it is a cliche because we accept it so easily, right? The characters do as well, but like we never question that Cole is a dancer. I mean, clearly he's got a dancer's body and he looks good in the sequined suit, but like, and he can dance, right? But we never question why this Australian Serbian kid is actually dancing. So I think it's an easy lubricant to the story to allow. Wrong term. I get it. To allow Cole to have a big moment at the wedding, to turn everybody around on him, to him, if you will.
You know what Jen Jameson said?
No, I don't. I didn't read that issue of Playboy.
You spit, not lube.
Was that a tattoo? I think that's a bumper sticker. It's like, shit happens, you spit, not lube.
Do you think anyone knows who Jenna Jameson is anymore?
I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I hope that would be the case. I mean, like, yeah. And in a sense of where we've gotten past nudie calendars and maybe probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. It's a filmography we're probably not going to do on this podcast either. So.
Did she direct her own work?
I'm sure once or twice.
The porn world's Elaine May. I'm kidding. Oh boy, this one's off the rails. We're gonna get into You Won't Be Alone. Like
we do this a lot, but like just talking about directors, this to me it's still proficient and really well shot and really well done. This feels like a bit more of a first film to me than You Won't Be Alone. This feels like a personal story. I have no idea if he's gay. It doesn't matter.
He is. Okay. He's openly gay, and he's a migrant from Macedonia who went to Australia, and he's made comments about being the only gay kid in the village, and the only gay in the village is how he put it, right? In Macedonia and stuff. So I feel like this is very autobiographical, or at least very inspired from.
Right.
He's also said that and he also said he didn't have very many friends, which had more to do with just him being shy and not necessarily gay or a migrant.
Sure.
But yeah, I think this is hits very close to home.
So yeah, it's an interesting pairing of films that are drastically different in my head. And this one seems much smaller on scope and scale. Again, going back to your question, how did you feel like how do you feel about this? Were this a heteronormative story? Would we be? I think the acting is alone, and I think the way that the story is portrayed, I think we would be gushing over.
Oh
it.
No! Well, it's not that do we like them more because they're queer love stories? I just wonder if people go in with certain sort of expectations, and not you and I think, look, not being facetious, I think that we approach these things kind of on their own terms. And as I was saying the other night, right, and seeing how they work and seeing how they're executed, and then sort of judging based on that, not like, okay, you're going to tell me a gay story, you better do it.
You better do it well.
Well, right. We gave you gays a chance before, but right. I do worry about that kind of mentality with certain films. Like, okay, well, if you're going to do a queer story, you got to hit these certain sort of beats, right? It's got to be something either akin to a heteronormative story or, right, this is what I expect.
Right.
So
different skin on the same story.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's one reason that I ask about sort of the tension too. Like, are these things, do they have inherently more at stake? I think that's kind of on the film level, the story level, but then on the meta level as well. Like, are people kind of going, hey, this is no Love, Valor, Compassion, buddy, right?
Right.
Where's Jason Alexander with his lisp? Do you know?
Right.
So, it's that kind of question that
I would think for some that the answer is definitely yes. I don't, like I said, I don't think if you watched as much stuff as you and I have, then it doesn't really play into it, because it all becomes kind of rote after a while. We've seen this, so it kind of becomes difficult to really compel. And to stand out. I don't mean that to be
we're
a
just
shitty
cynical
way.
and
we are. And so it takes something and it's the middle ground that suffers, right?
Yeah.
The shitty stuff we love, the great stuff we love. And again, I know we're going to talk about it on a different podcast, on a different episode, but Killers of the Flower Moon. And I don't want to get into it because I'm already fucking upset about it in the car ride over.
Oh, interesting.
But,
okay. Good.
It was just pissing me off anymore. But and it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. This mediocrity is what is really disappointing. It's the extremes are wonderful, but the middle road where it's just like, what the fuck do I give a shit? And that, to me, that's kind of where Passages falls in. Like, I'm not unhappy that I watched Passages, but I won't remember that I watched Passages 2 years from now.
See, that's interesting to me, because I'm trying to figure out why you hated it so much.
That may be strong. I think I was just
no. Look, it's fine, but I do think it's curious because I feel like there's enough there. I don't know. I think this is also how how the two of us are relating to Rogowski's character, Tomas.
Sure. Right.
And if you can't see the charm he has, and that's to no fault of yours.
No,
I just mean
it's
then
fine.
I think that then it doesn't work because he is the center. He is this unlikable anti-hero main character, right? But we're supposed to sort of understand, like, oh, he's kind of charming, he's kind of charismatic, he's artistic, he's this, blah, 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 blah. But if you're not getting that, if you're not vibing with that,
Right.
then yeah, it's not going to hold up. And you're going to go, you know what? It was fine. The performances were good, but other than that, I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Yeah, I get it. But I mean, mediocrity sucks though. I mean, it really does.
Right.
It really does. It's like, it's like being apathetic about something. Like it's the worst. It's the worst when you're like, you know what? That was fine. And I've already forgotten it.
Right. It's like we talk about so much and what we're going to end up seeing, because the SAG strike inexplicably continues to go on. I kind of understand why, because there's more actors than there are writers. It's not that hard to understand why that one's going to take longer to do. But like it's just this idea of like, again, we watch all this shit that gets churned out for content's sake. These these big budget, and again, you can argue that Killers of the Flower Moon is in the same way, bankrolled by Apple. It's these movies that just exist on a streaming system for a month and then will go away and we don't care. And so again, it's McDonald's, right? It's just enough to placate you to not unsubscribe from that streaming service.
Right.
If it gets pushed in your face.
What was the Tom Hanks movie on Apple TV where he was like a
Man Called Otto?
Navy. He was
Sully?
He was a World War II naval captain. Or admiral. I don't know.
Yeah, something about the world and the end. And
but
the
this is
and what have you.
But I
would have watched that movie if it had been called that.
I'm saying this because that's exactly what you're talking about, right? This big budget film with a big star, bankrolled by Apple, that doesn't exist anymore. Right. If it ever did exist, maybe I'm just making it up. The Greyhound.
Sure. I mean, why not? What's it about a bus? A man on a bus?
You know what, man?
You're going to look it up?
I'm going to look it up.
Did you bring up Tom Hanks so we could circle back to the thing I wanted to talk about also on this podcast?
No, but what was that? Go ahead. As I'm looking up this movie, which I know is called The Greyhound, and I'm going to tell you that in just a second. Nope, that was from 1914.
You can't see, just like you couldn't see Brock do the two fingers together, you saw his spirit be crushed.
It's just called Greyhound. Oh, Elizabeth Shue's in it. No, I'm definitely going to watch it.
Shit, I didn't know that. Why isn't she in the poster?
I don't know. Well, why didn't they just reuse like Leaving Las Vegas promo shots for that?
Talk about a actress who just has defied time.
I know.
She is stunning. Now, granted, I will love her till the day that I die.
Yeah.
And there is no one better than Allie in Karate Kid or The Adventures in Babysitting. Those two movies back to back may be the finest pieces of cinema ever put to celluloid. But man, what a wonderful actress she is. And like out of all the people in Karate Kid that I've met, that's the lament that she has not made it to a con so I can meet her.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, you've met people from, like, how many people have you met from Karate Kid?
I've met Chris.
Jaden Smith. Oh, wait, not that Karate Kid.
Are you? This is a Chris Rock moment right here. It's just fucking. Keep the damn Karate Kid remake out your mouth. Yeah. No, I've not met Jaden or Jackie. No, I've met Ralph. I've met William. I've met John Kreese.
Okay. Pat Morita.
I've not. Pat Morita unfortunately passed before I was able to meet him. But I have a picture of me in the Halloween costume that Daniel wears to the dance.
Okay, I was going to say, if you have a picture of you dressed as Pat Morita for Halloween,
right. Yeah, we may have problems. Maybe this podcast may be canceled.
You sure will be.
And then, and the three of them together, and then individually as well. So it was a highlight of my life, nice. Which again speaks more to my life than it does anything else. So. No, you brought up Tom Hanks, and I was talking to you about off mic about novelty rap songs that were specifically written for movies. And Tom Hanks did one for Dragnet.
Okay, I was trying to figure out who you were talking about. And I'm like, Bobby Brown didn't win an Oscar. Will Smith only won one.
No, this is Tom Hanks, back-to-back Best Actor winner. Also rapped a song called City of Crime for the Dragnet movie with Dan Aykroyd.
Right. Why don't we do that anymore?
Why don't we have...
Was that the only movie novelty rap he did?
That Tom Hanks did?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that he didn't have to do one for like Turner and Hooch or anything, but I don't think rap was as prominent. But like, it seemed like in 86 that we were getting a lot of those like, my name is this and I'm here to say that I did this thing in a very cool way. You know, that whole...
Nothing about that was cool, but
right, and that was all that I'm here to say is all because of Fruity Pebbles,
right?
The Flintstones commercial.
Right. But I mean, it's also, this is 86, so hip hop rap is not that old, and especially it's entering the mainstream in a way where, in just a couple years, I will be in my Catholic school uniform as like a 6th grader. Right, with my Sony Walkman and my cassette, singing along to Public Enemy, right?
Right.
So I mean, it makes sense. And we also got like, I think the, my name is blank and I'm here to say is also the same kind of rhythm of basketball is my favorite sport. Right. I love to watch them dribble up and down the court. I mean, it's the same kind of like
right. It pattern. Feels like everyone can do it, right? There weren't a lot of
I'm not saying I can. This is true. Right. So. Right.
But have you ever listened? Are you familiar with City of Crime?
I am trying to remember the song. I'm familiar with Dragnet and watching Dragnet. I mean, God, when I was like 9 years old, right? And I think, did we go to the theater? Did I go see? I probably did. And the pills and the big like sheep leggings.
Yes, yeah.
Aykroyd is Joe Friday.
I'm gonna say you said it wasn't very good. I'm gonna defend Dragnet.
Look, I love it.
I love it. It's not that bad for a remake of a 50s show.
Look, I'm not saying it's unwatchable.
It's got Aykroyd, it's got Hanks. I mean, like at their comedic tops.
It's got like
Dabney
Satan
Coleman
worshippers and human sacrifice, and
it's kind of
a
risque
boa constrictor
in that PG-13.
Yeah.
Like there's something about like we will never get it back. But there was something about comedic Tom Hanks and that kind of manic cocaine. I don't think that he was doing cocaine, but like that manic energy that he had.
Like Bachelor Party.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Even like Splash and Big. And like these roles where, he was just like.
He was a Muppet. I mean, like, if you think about his movement and his acting, he's like a funnier Kermit the Frog.
And fucking Money Pit, which is one of the funniest movies.
Yeah. With also Alexander Goodenough.
Yeah.
Discussed in this parish. I'm a diehard.
But City of Crime was a post-credit rap song. You can go look it up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, I mean, Aykroyd plays Joe Friday of the Dragnet, and then
just the facts.
And Tom Hanks plays Pep Streebek.
That's right, Streebek.
And he's the cop who doesn't give a shit. He goes to strip clubs to find. He's like the guy who's like sleeping with women, and Joe Friday's the straight laced, just the facts guy. And this song is just them basically rapping Miranda rights. It's so fucking terrible, and it is a bad song. It is bad, but I had that record when I was a kid, and I would just mainly because of that song. Like I was so enamored with Fresh Prince and like all that stuff that was coming out right at that particular time that I was just like, and like even like the Beasties and like and Run DMC, that anything rap I was trying to eat up, and I was just like, hey man, I remember them like there's at one point the criminal aspect raps back on the song, and it's like it's hey there copper, Mr. Crime Stopper, what's wrong with what I'm doing? I just like to dance in these goatskin pants around this ancient ruin. Oh yeah,
that's
City of Crime.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and what's so funny about it too is that all that manic energy because I mean like Aykroyd had, I mean, and Hanks was one of the best Saturday Night Live hosts ever too. Mm-hmm. But Aykroyd had been in the game for so that whole like him making a fool of himself was kind of part and parcel, right? But like Hanks gives so much effort to this rap song. He puts so much into it. Like he's the guy, he's the callback guy in this song. Like, so it's like he's the guy going, huh, and like just so he's Pep Streebek in the rap song too, but it's all this like, yeah, it's like Joe Friday's all straight laced the entire time, and then Pep's all over the place, like
Flavor.
Yes, yeah. Tom Hanks, like you see the video, Tom Hanks is so excited to be a part of this new phenomenon called rap that I'm surprised he didn't. I'm not surprised that Chet took it up on his own, like later on in life.
Oh God. Okay.
Anyway, let's bring that back. You Won't Be Alone should have had a post-credit rap sequence.
You're right, but done in the original Macedonian language.
Right.
I'm glad you brought it back to the last film
to the
today.
Topic at hand.
So You Won't Be Alone. In an isolated mountain village in 19th century Macedonia, a young girl is kidnapped and then transformed into a witch by an ancient spirit. And then she spends the rest of the time trying to figure out what the fuck it is to be a human.
Yeah, she's attacked by a witch when she's a young baby. She gets her voice taken away. Her mom hides her away in a cave so the witch can't get to her, but it also removes her humanity, her ability to speak properly, her ability to interact with any actual human beings. And then once the witch frees her from the cave, she spends the rest of the time, taking on the forms of a woman, and a dog, another man, a child, all to figure out what it is to be human.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question before we get too deep into this. Because
do I like being a human?
Right.
Really?
Do you like being a human? Would you rather be a dog watching a bunch of boys jerk off in the field?
Well,
that's not the question I wanted to ask, but now that it's out there, I'm going to ask you that. That's the one I want to know the answer to.
The dog part, yes. The latter part of that, not really my thing.
Right.
But,
if you happen to stumble upon it, you probably wouldn't turn away.
I would probably ask the question, like, why altogether? Like,
right.
Like, I mean,
are
like,
you racing, or is this some sort of hazing?
What does the winner get? what's riding on this bet? I don't know. I mean, no, but seriously,
do you think, and I will, let me preface this question by saying I really, really like this film.
Mhm.
I think it is, I do have some problems with it, but not really some of the choices aspect of it. But I really, really like this film, and I think it's a very impressive first film. I mean, I do think it wears its influences on its sleeve, but that's neither here nor there. All films do that. So that being said, I like this film. Do you think we overrate as a society folk horror films?
Yeah, I do.
Like, do you think we give them a pass?
Yes,
because
they're folk horror.
Because they're confusing and like arty and like, and maybe they're not quite as good as we tell ourselves they are.
Yeah.
So like, as again, not to bring it back up, but Killers of the Flower Moon, we're watching this. So I've got to, if I say that it's bad, then I look like a dumb movie going person. I think
Scorsese never makes a bad film.
I do think
you just don't understand Scorsese. His mediocrity is better than most people's best.
That's Brock's dumb movie person guy impersonation.
That's my Scorsese bro. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we also then chastise people who don't prop up folk horror and don't get it. I do feel like...
No, we say you don't get it.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, that's what happens, right? You're like, oh, you don't get it.
But I do think I think it's very valid to sit through things like The Wicker Man or The Witch or these other kind of like slow burn, quiet horror films. And if you don't like them, there's no reason you can't say you don't like them. If it doesn't work for you. Like not everything, like these metaphor films don't all have, like even Under the Skin, like it's not really folk horror, but like because you're not setting up.
But it shares aspects.
Right. It's okay not to like those films. It's okay to like what you like.
Yes, exactly. It is perfectly fine to not like what you don't like, and it's perfectly fine to like what you like. I really get, look, I know that if you're listening to this podcast, if you talk to me outside, there's a lot of shit that I don't like, and I'm pretty vocal about it. But here's the thing, I never have turned to someone else and go, why do you like that? I've never done that.
Right.
I mean, knock on wood, or like if I have, I'm sorry, right? But I try my best not to, because it doesn't really matter. You like what you like, right? The people that like Killers of the Flower Moon, hey, good for you. I'm never going to agree with you, right? But that's fine, right? I didn't sit there and tell you, why do you like this piece of shit?
Right.
So don't do the same to me. Don't sit there and say, well, how could you not like this? Well, pretty easily. And I think it's the same thing with like folk horror. I think that it is kind of an easy way to be like, I like art house films.
It does,
and then
it does feel like there's a level of pretentiousness, even to this movie.
Sure.
That kind of undercuts. You know, maybe I take umbrage with the term horror in this case, because You Won't Be Alone is not really a horror film. It is a gory film, but that's different things, right? I mean, it's not. You're not going to go away from this movie with an underlying sense of dread, even.
I didn't look like under my car before I
right for a burning witch or anything.
Right.
And so there's a lack of tension in this movie that, again, but this also feels like if you're watching Tree of Life or another Malick film or something shitty by David Gordon Green, like these things can still be shitty and still look pretty at the same time. I guess that's my point.
Right. No, you're exactly right. I mean, I think there's more to this film.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I
right.
think no. And I know you said that you liked it, but I mean, I do think that a film like this runs the risk of coming off as pretentious because it does that stuff with the camera. It's got that voiceover, the kind of whispery voiceover.
Well, and it's broken English, right? I mean, even and
I mean, it's very poetic in
right.
a lot of different ways. Yeah, it's subtitled, and the subtitles are in broken English, right?
Right.
It's concerned with the composition of shots. It's concerned with light, right? I mean, you know, the way light is portrayed on film. And so, yeah, I mean, it does feel maybe a little precious at times. But I think overall, it's just trying to make a kind of, you know, compelling, atmospheric movie. But yeah, I mean, it's not scary.
And so that was the one point, I guess my problem, not problem, but the one, if I had to take away something that I didn't care for, I really didn't like the score. I thought
I didn't either.
The tinkling piano and trying to, like, this movie needed to allow the audience to feel whatever it wanted to feel. Had this just been ambient noise, this movie would have been fucking brilliant.
Just the trees, the wind, the nature. Yeah,
you had so much going on in this Macedonian setting. There would have been enough background chatter and like and shit going on. The forced feeling and the forced emotion being portrayed with this piano was just really like, okay, this feels like kind of a car commercial in a lot of ways. Like, I'm just like, okay, you're trying to crescendo me into feeling some sort of emotion. Don't do that. Like, I'm already there with trying to find this, and trying to put myself into feeling what I would do in these scenarios, and like how I would open up into these, to these opportunities to live a different life or live as a different person. Or I can just kind of.
So do you think that is kind of a first film making mistake?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's not trusting your audience or trusting
yourself. Right.
To be able to portray and to convey the message that you want to convey.
I think it's a hard thing to kind of just let things sit, right? To just let things settle there and trust that your viewer, your audience will sort of sit with you, right? But yeah, I did not like the score either. It just, there were moments where you're in a scene and you're watching it and the music takes me out. I'm like, why? Why did you do that?
Right.
I just want to hear the wind. And I'm like, that shouldn't happen.
And if you do want to build tension and you do want this to be a folk horror, let me hear the viscera, right? I mean, let me hear the scratching and the tension in the background and that's I guess, again, one of the things this movie wants to be a horror film, the tension of the old maid always being around the corner, kind of looking in the background, being that sense of doubt that we all have that just sits there and fucks with us, that, that would have been palpable in a lot of, and again, but again, the score almost makes it comical, or at least it undercuts all the tension that you would have had by having her show up again.
Yeah.
And what I that's the other thing too. Again, I think the knock on this is that if it wanted to be horror, that idea of doubt and I guess just the life throwing you a curveball, the unexpected nature of it all, having the other witch the old maid witch showing up in different scenarios, always being a presence and never really being able to get away from her, would have been, an interesting aspect to this. Now, I think it's really good. And I do think that, the way that the characters that, the main character that moves through the bodies, that never speaks and kind of just, looks at life, takes it all in and tries to formulate. And of course you do hear the voiceover, of course, and then what their observations are. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's really beautiful about this movie, but I do think that I think this is a heady and heavy first time film to pull off and do really well.
Yeah. Do you think, and I haven't read this, so I some of the stuff I've read is that earlier when I was talking about how the director, was very close to Cole and of an age, he's quoted in this interview, and I think it's an Australian newspaper, about how, really he spent kind of his teenage years, watching Bergman, Fellini, right? Love Katharine Hepburn, stuff like that. I think you can see those influences here, like pretty clearly. So do you think he wanted it to be horror? Do you think he thought, oh, this is a horror film? I mean, do you think he thought, oh, this is my Bergman horror film? Because when I hear this as horror, I'm like, I don't think of it as that at all. Or is that like us putting that label on it? And then we expect, or is that a marketing department?
Yeah, I think that's a focus feature, seeing how well The Witch and The Lighthouse and all these other films are faring.
Okay.
And we need to get some of that sweet A24 money too.
Because I think, this is such a different film than those. I think it's probably more closely related to something like The Witch in its slowness, in its kind of atmosphere, in its approach to filmmaking. But
right, but it doesn't ask that much. It like the level of ludicrousness that The Witch gets to. And again, I'm not against The Witch. I'm just saying that there's these leaps of faith that these Ari Aster movies ask the audience to take aren't.
The Witch is a Robert Eggers.
I know. I'm sorry. I should have said Eggers. I should have said Eggers because I was sitting there thinking Lighthouse too. But yes, I agree. Well, and that's and fair. That is actually a fair. But just speaking of also, I was afraid if they're kind of loop. They unfairly get lumped together. Yeah, they're the Sidney Pollock and Sidney Lumet.
Because I don't think A Beau is Afraid is a horror film either.
Right.
And I think these are like, let's throw it in a genre category, and then people will go, and then they get, what the fuck is Malick doing here?
Right. I don't necessarily know why you would classify it as such. And again, I think that part of it is because, well, one, we can use folk horror and it sounds prestige-y. And then two, we can then, put it in a certain section in the streaming library, whatever, right?
Yeah. So this kind of suffers the same categorization of something like Innisman, right? Where,
well, it's weird too that they're like, claiming this is a Noomi Rapace film. Like
I know
she's in it for all of like 15 minutes, if that. It's not. It's
right.
And granted, Noomi Rapace kind of looks like every other woman in this film. So I was like, wait a minute, is that Noomi Rapace?
Is that Noomi Rapace? Or is that? Yeah,
So it's like watching actually men in this case, because every actress is Noomi Rapace.
So I don't know why that is like that. Why not just let this stand on its own?
I think it is all marketing. I don't think that,
because this played at Sundance, correct? Yeah, and it played well at Sundance
because it actually got rejected from I think Venice and Cannes.
Okay,
and then did well at Sundance.
Okay,
I do think it's a matter of marketing in this case. When we bought this film, it's got witches in it, so it's horror. It's horror. It's fun. It's horror. It's fine. It's got witches. It's got horror. Witches are scary, right? So we're going to put it
right. And it's like in the 19th century, so it's kind of folky. And,
right. From the studio that didn't bring you The Witch.
It's just
a story about witches.
It's just like The Wicker Man, but with witches and bees.
To be fair, the 70s, and to be fair, neither version actually had bees in it.
I'm just
only one had Nicolas Cage.
I'm just like, I don't know.
Speaking of people, whatever happened to Lili Sobieski? Whatever happened to her? She's not in. Are you looking at me because I don't know what happened?
I know. Yeah, what did happen, and where did that come from? Was she in the Wicker Man?
She was in the Wicker Man remake, which you clearly didn't see.
No. Why
You're
would
not
I
a
see
Neil
that?
LaBute completist?
No. Oh my God! Speaking of LaBute, I watched his latest film with.
See, this is weird to me that I don't know that he has. More films coming
I was
out.
going to tell you, but then I completely forgot about it. Maggie Q is in it.
Okay.
And it's another like weirdly sort of I'm trying to be feminist thing where these women go off on like a bachelorette party and they're attacked by outside men, and Maggie Q, who has a military background, has to kill everybody and save the day.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was not good. No, I like Maggie Q.
What was that movie we watched that was like the screaming movie where all the women have to like, God damn it, I just watched too much shit. But the one we didn't like, we were like, oh, but this is like the most harrowing film you're gonna watch all year. And it was like, I just remember women screaming, like they go back to the house and they have to cover up a murder and she's not actually dead at the end. And
Soft and Quiet.
Yes.
Soft and Quiet.
Thank you. Oh, right. Because they're all like wild racist Klan members.
Yeah, they're all like white supremacist.
Okay, right.
Karens. Right. Yeah.
Soft and Quiet. All right. So is Neil LaBute's new movie out on streaming somewhere?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's out in the ether. I didn't realize it was Neil LaBute until I started watching it. And the credits, I'm like, because I was like, it was like one of those like, Friday or Saturday nights. I didn't want to go like actually leave the house. And I'm like, I just need something dumb to zone out to. And I'm like, Maggie Q fights people. Cool. I'll watch that. And then like his name pops. I'm like, seriously? Like,
that is a bizarre career.
So strange.
To be, like I said, like a kind of a championed auteur, especially when like Nurse Betty comes out, people are like all over him. And then to now be a guy you don't even know he directed a movie. Yeah. Like how many people can you think of that actually happens to? Like it's not even like even like a
Sidney Lumet.
a Brett Ratner or somebody like that like I mean, who was never an auteur, but like
I would say there's a lot of movies that I don't know are made by people I recognize,
right?
But it's because they kind of fit that formula.
I mean, like even like McHugh like ends up doing like
McHugh has a style though. I mean, and I don't like McHugh's films or that terrible TV show he did with Tiffany Thiessen, who dropped the amber, right? And Peter
Facinelli,
yeah. But he has and was Bill Bellamy in that? There's a name you haven't thought of for a while. But I mean, but like, someone like McHugh, you can watch that and go, oh, okay. Like all right, I see this, right? But
I actually like those two babysitter movies on Netflix. I know you probably haven't watched them.
I have with
no, those are McHugh films.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense, right? With the kind of
the Margot Robbie knockoff.
Yes, I was going to say the off-brand Margot Robbie.
She's great.
No, she is. I can't remember her name,
but she looks just like Margot.
Samara Weaving.
Yes,
Samara Weaving. She is good and she's funny. She was in Smilf and she was in the what was
Ready or Not?
Ready or Not. Yeah,
and then she was actually in the Bill and Ted #3 as well. She was one of Bill and Ted's one of their daughters or whatever.
Okay.
No, she's great, and I think those movies are they're just like brain candy.
Jenna Ortega is in the second one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What the fuck are we talking about? You Won't Be Alone.
Which you won't. You listen to us, and you will never be alone.
It's hard to like
always have us in your ear holes.
There's so much going on in this movie, like from the horrors of being in 1800s Macedonia to trying to figure out who you are, to generational trauma, to
there's a queer reading in this film.
Right. There's a
gender fluidity
that exists. I think like out of all the things that it does where there has missteps, I do think there's 5 or 6 things that it does really, really well.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it does not really force feed you, aside from the emotional cues, too much outside of that. And so I think this is a film that can be, whereas a lot of these like folk horror films don't lend themselves to this, but I think there's a lot of pieces in here that this would benefit from multiple watchings.
Oh, yeah.
And I think once you started to get familiar with, because again, the movie takes a kind of to me, a jarring step when they start telling the story of the maid.
Yeah.
And like, because all of the characters look the same and it looks like it's the same time period and the colors are the same and everyone still kind of looks like Naomi Rapace, that it's hard to like kind of get your bearings of like, oh, I'm in this story now and not in this story. And then kind of figure out where those two end. I think it's clear why that was his big set piece, right? That's the big burning body. I think a little bit too, like some of the special effects obviously aren't great. The makeup isn't like the makeup on the old maid looks like a rubber suit. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it really detracts too much, but it's, in a movie these days, it does a little bit. I think it's a little bit jarring to see that. But other than that,
it's like bad VFX stands out.
right.
Where, yeah.
But
it's
I
like
think
watching Predator again and seeing like the ship, the first scene, you're kind of like, is that that's on a string, right? Okay.
Right.
But I mean, it's, stuff like that.
And the story where McTiernan forgot that shot was actually in the movie.
Get to the chopper, Jesse.
So, but it's hard to like really delve into any one of these to kind of, without like spending another 4 or 5 hours talking about individual pieces of this and kind of picking apart how you feel about them.
Right. I mean, like the deconstruction that could take place with this film, it could just happen over and over and over and over. I think that's something I really admire about this film too, is that, look, I mean, I'm not a big champion of interpretation for interpretation's sake, but I think you can do so with this film while admiring everything from a craft aspect as well, right? Especially with get rid of that score. And I think it becomes even more sort of effective in what it's trying to get you to feel and think about. But so yeah, I think that you can really get into these ideas just from what is right there, right? Without being like, oh, what's behind the curtain? But with what it's showing you, I think there's so much to unpack and take away from this film.
This is so much Malick, and that Of an Age is so much different that I'm really interested in seeing Housekeeping for Beginners.
Me too.
Just to see what the next thing that he does.
This is his latest film that premiered at Venice in September.
And it's supposed to be phenomenal. I mean, it's gotten, initial reaction is great. So I'm like, this 3 film set, I think, will be very telling of what his kind of arc is going to be.
Yeah.
I do think part of the horror aspect of it too probably helps get this movie financed. And so if you're going to go in and say, well, I'm going to make a melodramatic Terrence Malick-esque movie about what it's like to be a human set in 1800s Macedonia, and the backers are like, okay, and it's got witches in it. Oh,
greenlit.
Whoa, naked witches. Let's do it.
Here's 20 million. Let's do it. Naked witches. Wait, you said there are going to be naked witches. She's all burnt up. What's going on? That one's just old. Oh.
Supposedly, I read a trivia bit about Noomi Rapace not knowing that she had to be naked in this, and like, I was when I saw the nudity of Noomi Rapace, I'm like, that. I mean, really not. I mean, it's like a backside scene, and it's. I mean, like, I wouldn't be overly embarrassed. I mean, like, I get it. Body autonomy, fine. I mean, do what you need to do to
but it's not a gratuitous nude. It's not like, hey, look at Noomi Rapace's boobs.
Right. I mean, right. And there are some nudity shots in the movie,
but they always seem to serve a function.
Sure.
Right? It's not like you were sort of saying about passages. It's like overlong kind of, hey, look. It's like, this is what it is. It's 1800s Macedonia.
Right.
Like people will disrobe.
It's, yeah. I mean, this is the type of movie I do wish. I don't like. It's an ask for this would be an hour and 40 minutes, and then because it is poetic and dreamy and I do kind of wish. I don't know. I wish that the threat of the witch was more potent, but also that we got to spend more time with some of these people. And to really, rather than voiceover, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just to get to, because again, we're talking in kind of broken speak, poetic speak. It's, you don't, maybe I don't really want to, maybe
that's just us. That's just the two of us.
Right. Maybe I don't want it spelled out for me at the end of the day of how the man feels versus the woman feels, or maybe it's best that I'm just talking myself out of this.
I was going to say, keep talking yourself out of it, because I think there's a lot that's working really well. Like, I mean, in just story wise.
Well, and right? I think my point being, not so much to have it explained to me, but having us to live in these skins just a little bit longer than what we get.
Yeah.
I do think we spend a lot of time focusing on the violent aspect of life. And so like, I think almost the Noomi Rapace piece, like, I understand the transition has to happen the way that it happens, but like, we spend a lot of time with Noomi Rapace, and probably because she was the highest paid person on screen, right? And so I think maybe that is kind of my point of like, once we get past her, she can really start kind of owning her own life and start to navigate in a way that she hasn't before,
right? And a kind of recurring theme in what she's talking about is sort of noticing the bad, but also the good. And so I think we see, a lot of the violence, a lot of the sort of negative aspects of this life and of life at this time, so that she's able to recognize more and more the beautiful parts of it as well. Right. And I'm not one of these, I think the question of why evil exists will probably never be answered, especially if you are a believer in an omni-god, right? But I think this film is saying like, yeah, the world sucks, but also there's also these other moments that like we can't sort of forget about. I think I do think it has more of a connection with Of an Age than maybe you're giving it credit for. I think both films have a very kind of, even though this one has multiple readings, I think there's a very kind of clear, sort of queer, sort of fluid, even trans kind of storyline in there. And we have obviously the queer love story in Of an Age. And I think the style in which they're shot is pretty similar. Not a one-to-one same, but same format, same kind of handheld, hyper camera, right? Yeah, and
big zooms, not zooms, but focused in on faces. And
I mean, I think Of an Age doesn't have as many close-ups. I think he was really in love with the close-up and You Won't Be Alone, but I think that's fine. I think he's more kind of judicious with the close-up, the use of close-up in Of an Age, but I think you can see similarities in the filmmaking in both.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have any other information about Housekeeping for Beginners other than I know those 3 words, and that's basically.
Did you see the storyline? I mean,
no, I really didn't.
It's okay.
But no, go ahead. I mean, it's not like
it's a well, and this is just like the log line. I mean, I don't know what happens in the film, but it's set in like conservative Macedonia, like but current day, and
another one.
Contemporary Macedonia, which is still, yes, very conservative. And a queer woman whose partner has died, she now has to raise these kids. And she has no real, she's obligated to do so, but she doesn't really want to, right? She's reluctant to do so. So that's basically it. Right?
So it's like 3 Men and a Baby set in Macedonia.
Right.
But only one woman. And multiple babies. In this case.
Right.
So it's exactly the same.
Exactly the same, except
that there's only one woman.
It's one woman.
More babies.
In
Macedonia. And it's 2023.
Correct.
Rather than 1980, whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so,
but
yeah,
I mean,
I think I got the feel for it, though.
Yeah, okay.
Is Ted Danson in it? I don't know.
He is second billed.
He's one of the babies, actually.
He's like a Benjamin Button. But this sounds to me...
Holy shit. There's a movie. 3 Men and a Benjamin Button.
It sounds to me similar to something like... an Asghar Farhadi movie where God, I sound like an asshole. Where a lot of the tension arises from the culture within the story is set. So if you think about a story like The Salesman, where a man's wife is assaulted in their home, and now the tension between them is not because of what happened, but because of what society expects from him and from her, and how she is sort of, even though she did nothing wrong, is now looked down upon. So
yeah. Well, I think it's probably out now.
Yeah. So you should go check those films out. There are. I do just want to say that if you're interested in films like these, I don't know if you did a list of like God, you're a loser.
I know.
I'm kidding. There is.
I can name movies like this.
There's a Georgian film called "And Then We Danced." Takes place in Fulton County.
Right. It's about this small town boy.
Or make him.
A big city boy coming to a small town.
Georgian set in Tbilisi, or Georgian set in Tbilisi, kind of in the world of traditional Georgian dance, but also like a queer love story in a place where you are not supposed to be gay. I think pairs really well with Of an Age.
That's not a bad plot device of queer telling of Footloose.
Right.
I'd go see that movie.
Yeah. See? There you go. Dance. Gay boys. I don't know. So, yeah.
They all dance well, according to Of an Age people. No, I mean like not of age people that were in of age.
People who are of a certain age.
Of a certain age,
like,
all think that gay men dance well. It's a known fact.
Okay.
Did you have any other recommended if you like?
Sure. I was just going to say that. I mean, I think You Won't Be Alone. I think we mentioned The Witch, which I think is a pretty kind of clear connection. But I would also throw out La Llorona, the 2019 Guatemalan film.
Not The Curse of La Llorona.
Not the one that's in, not that piece of garbage. Not the one that's in this sort of what's that universe?
Oh, the Conjuring
universe, yeah. Right. And then for passages, I thought about Both Sides of the Blade by Claire Denis, starring Juliette Binoche and Vincent Lindon.
Sure. Vincent Lindon.
That's exactly how you say it. Another kind of love triangle with, I mean, frankly, not the most likable of characters. So,
yeah. All right then.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So, listener, there you go. I will give you other films to watch. Jason, anything else you want to?
I think we're good. I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but I mean, I'd say we did a kick-ass episode.
I think we have just given what the kids call content.
Right.
We've provided what the kids call
It's sick
content.
as, I'm just saying. I mean,
bro.
One last note. They kind of drop a little bit, but I would have liked seen played out a little bit more, is Adam's love of Tori Amos.
I know.
And his email address is why can't Adam dance, or not, it's what is it, dance, or sing something, or why can't, and maybe it's dance. Anyway, that was the name of Tori Amos's first band before Tori Amos. So yeah, it's why can't Tori dance or whatever. That would have been fun. I mean, I don't know if you want to like get kitschy with it really, but I mean like it's, but it was kind of a nice little conversation piece in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, any more Tori Amos, I think is always good. More Tori Amos is always good.
Right. I do think you can probably you can veer towards the Tarantino pop culture references too much when doing something like that. But if it's sincere enough, and you have an actual take to it, I think it's or if this had just been completely filled with Tori Amos, like deep cuts, that would have been a lot of fun.
That would have been cool. But just playing, right? Like in the tape deck. Yeah, I mean, not like Tori Amos's version of Like a Virgin.
What are we doing? Do we even know what we're doing next?
We don't. Okay. Not definitively. I think, regardless, next time, listeners, we are trying to line up a special guest to come in and talk to us about Killers of the Flower Moon and maybe convince us that it's a better film than we think it is. There's a spoiler. Regardless, we're going to talk Killers of the Flower Moon next time. We may talk some other things as well.
Kind of a hodgepodge.
We probably will because, I mean, if you've listened today, you know that we can't stay on topic. Which is why you listen.
Maybe Brock and I will reenact City of Crime from the Dragnet soundtrack. I've just got to get some goatskin pants, but it shouldn't be hard to find.
I already have goatskin pants.
I threw mine out a while back.
I wonder if mine still fit, actually.
Well, there's plenty of time to lose weight and get in those, or gain weight, depending on whichever way you went.
It's true.
So I know you probably like to play along at home, but they'll be in the notes in the episode, so you can watch before you listen if you need to do that. I'm assuming that everyone's gone out and is well read on Cassavetes at this point.
Yes, there are multiple Cassavetes experts out there at this point.
Right.
So next time we'll at least talk Killers of the Flower Moon. Either just the two of us or with the guest. We'll see. It'll be fine. Okay. Look,
it's good stuff to end on. I'm going to tell you.
It is. We're going to stop right there.
Every piece of words that I say, which is, again, how see, I watched You Won't Be Alone too long, and now me talk like a wolf eatress.
Okay. Until next time. Thank you for listening.
And keep on screaming.
Buddy. we're putting this party on ice.
But don't you know we really ought to read them their rights?
Read them their rights. Read them their rights.
Well, I'm here tonight to rap about your rights. Cause right now you're in trouble. Don't have to say nothing at all. Y'all got two calls and you better make them on the double. This is a city of crime. So stand alive. This is a city of crime. You better be clean on judge's time.
You're a dangerous mob, and it is our job to bust you all for being violent. While we are here, let's state it clear.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,